All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Breakthrough Innovation. Joining us today is Prasad Gollapalli, a serial entrepreneur and tech visionary in the supply chain and logistics industry. Prasad is the founder and CEO of Qd, a company revolutionizing appointment scheduling by making Prime Doc appointments accessible directly from within your TMS, a first of its kind innovation. Before Qd, Prasad founded Trucker Tools, one of the industry's most widely adopted digital platforms for freight tracking and driving tools, serving millions of truckers and brokers. With a career that spanned IT leadership, product innovation, and building high growth startups from the ground up, Prasad brings deep insight into both the day to day realities and the future trends shaping transportation and logistics. Prasad, thank you so much for being here. As I mentioned before we started recording, I have a little bit of experience in the payment industry within trucking, so I'm really eager to kind of jump into this and kind of see where our experiences overlap.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, JL. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Maybe to start, tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your journey and what led to Qd.
We were talking about this. It's going to be hard to say something in a condensed way, but I'll say it in a simpler way. Uh, Again, for the audience, my name is Prasad Gollapalli. I'm the CEO and founder of Cured, and my journey here in the supply chain has started accidentally, very much. I almost didn't take job twice to get into this. On the first side, it was on the shipping side, and then from shipping, I moved into the trucking side through a company called Get Loaded. It was a startup, like all my companies, all the companies that either I worked for or started. They're all startups. Um, so I'm a one-trick pony. All I know is startups, supply chain management, and startup strategy. That's my small world.
Well, if that's your only trick, I think it's a valuable one that a number of people would enjoy knowing as well. So maybe we can dive into that a little bit and explore. So I know you've launched two major technology platforms, in Trucker Tools and Qd. What's changed for you in how you innovate in the logistics space from when you started Trucker Tools to what you're doing with Qd now?
So, Jail, the very first thing when we talk about innovation, right? Oftentimes people think it's something that's superhuman, right? Unnatural. It's game changers or all of that. But I think the underlying philosophy for an innovation is solving problem. How do we solve an existing problem using new tools, maybe, or new thinking, and make it look a lot more simpler, right? And some problems happen over years, they have never been touched. Some problems have been created because of some innovations that have happened 20, 30 years back. And now we got new problems, right? So a perfect recipe for innovation in my mind is um, problems. That is where it starts with major problems that have been there for some time or that are really annoying for us right now. For businesses, problems are basically roadblocks from making money. That's the second part of the innovation is new technologies, because new tools can help us solve these problems differently. But then the third part is fresh mindset. How do you see things differently? For me, when I started Trucker Tools, it was smartphones. They just became very prevalent. And before Trucker Tools, it was Get Loaded. So I knew if you can aggregate all the small carriers on one platform, you could provide a lot of services to people. And that small platform has to be mobile, because then you can proactively provide services, hence Trucker Tools. With Cured, this is a problem that no one has touched for over 40 years. Appointment scheduling has been done manually all these years. And if you look at all the problems in supply chain, whether OTIF penalties that shippers pay millions of dollars every year, or hundreds of millions of man hours spent manually scheduling, or getting detention pays to the carriers, penalties, all of them have one root problem. That is poor appointment scheduling, not getting good appointments that cause that. So, identifying that problem is the key to start.
No, I love that. And there's a lot to unpack in your answer because I do think as humans, we're natural creative problem solvers. And I feel like, actually, I shouldn't say I feel like, I know especially in the US, but I think worldwide in general, a lot of that creative problem solving gets ironed out of people as they go through school. And it becomes just problem solving, where to your point, we don't necessarily bring the fresh mindset anymore. We just look at problems in a very rote, systematic way. And that's where innovation kind of dies, whether it's at the organizational level or the personal level. I love your focus on the fresh mindset because I do think if you bring that fresh mindset, you may not even need a new technology. You may just need a new technology to the problem and apply it in a different way. I love case studies by like sticky notes, how they came about. WD-40, there was a WD-430, but it was, yeah, all those sorts of things. I guess my question, how do you bring that fresh mindset to life in your people? Because it can't just be you. So how do you inspire people to reignite that fresh mindset that makes them creative problem solvers rather than just normal problem solvers?
Jill, you said something very, very important, right? People are smart, but they are not, they lose their creativity, fresh mindset in all years of education or working, or work environments don't encourage that to many, for many reasons. So what I have made as a core principle value for my startups is when I bring in new staff, new members into the team, the very first thing I tell them is think of this as you're going back to school. So when you go to your school, you go to a class, your professor says something, you don't question that. You're more open to listening to it and trying to build on it. But when you go to work, because you think you are expected to know the answer as opposed to learn something in school, you tend to block your thinking. You put an answer and then try to justify that. The innovation part dies when people take the later approach where they put an answer and explain why that has to be the case.
Right.
Because they believe that they have to know the answer. So
Right.
my first philosophy is we don't know the answer. Have a curious mind, have a learning mind, make more mistakes, do different things. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. So that means when we are coaching our leadership team, also when you see them make a mistake, that's just obvious mistake. You have to hold on to your horses and not like penalize them for it. You have to encourage them. That's a good try, right? I mean, how else can we solve this problem? These open-ended questions always help. Oftentimes, another thing I have always done with technology teams primarily is we have our CTO or whoever manages the technology team. But when I bring in them, two conditions. The first one is build technology that will only last for a year. Don't build me technology that will last forever.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
I'll come to that in 1 second. The second part is don't tell me we can't do that ever. If I say, hey, we have to do this, you can't do that. You can't do that is never the case because it always, maybe we want to get there. There is no direct solution. Maybe we can get here, 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 right? Or we have to wait for Apple and Google to provide some tools for us to get there. But tell me the interim steps. How can we do that? Not can we do that or not is not the question. How can we do that? So having those two parts is absolutely important. Having a growth mindset, we have to make that as our culture.
Well, I like, so you definitely hit on the growth mindset, but the other thing you hit on that I love is the safety, right? That growth mindset doesn't help you unless you make it safe for people to engage in the questioning activities, to try things and grow. I think that's brilliant, and not enough people focus on that. I'm curious, so like you've obviously been successful at instilling that safety, that growth mindset, and bringing innovation to life in people. What are the challenges you face now? Like, what's holding you back at Q'd from an innovation perspective?
As a founder, right? And having done this few times, you get very restless. You want to solve this quickly, but it's a team that has to get there together, right? So you're waiting for your leadership team to get there. Mindset. That's the most important thing. Solving problems is a lot easier if you have people who are solving in the right mindset. That is the most difficult thing because people often want to be told what to do, not be told solve a problem in your own way, right? that coaching, and with all my startups and all my throughout my journey, you find two types of people: entrepreneurs or startup folks. The other one, non-entrepreneurs or non-startup folks, but wanting to get into this. The second group is the largest group out there, naturally. The first group, it's rarely there, right? I mean, it's very hard to find people who are natural entrepreneurs, but you do find them. When you find them, you don't find them with experience. You have to train them. That's where, when you're a founder, it's harder to run a startup, even if you have done quite a few startups, than, in my viewpoint, a large organization. Because in a large organization, everybody knows what their jobs are. And it's a very structured place, right? You don't have to do a whole lot. You may not get a whole lot of return on your inputs. It's like steering a ship. No, you're not going to turn it on a dime.
Right. Yeah.
Startups are really NASCARs and fighter jets. They can do all kinds of maneuvering, right? But you're going to do that with your team.
Yeah.
So that means you have to get your leadership team fully coached. That is the major part of the job. Constantly coach them, constantly coach them. You coach them for a couple of years, and all of a sudden, one morning they wake up and it,
Clicks.
aha, for them,
Yeah.
right? Once they get that, they're never going back. So we've had the people that I have worked with for years. The only place they want to work is startup.
Well, and it's funny. I think people, somewhere along the way, a lot of people lose the joy of solving a hard problem. And I think when you talk about that click, for me, I think that's, as an entrepreneur myself, I think that's the joy you rediscover is you can actually solve a really hard problem and it's really freaking rewarding. Like the endorphin hit when it all works is just huge. And I think that's where that addiction comes from. I'm curious, like, is that kind of your experience as well?
It is, and I'm going to share a story from my Trucker Tools days. So this was a little bit time ago. So one day our CTOs came into my office and said, "Prasad, I have bad news." And said, "What's that?" We were tracking using Apple and iPhone, and Apple, if you kill the app and it goes into the background, we could still get the location. Apple can remove our app from the background, which means we won't get locations. We've had usually my questioning, what if, what if, what if, what ifs. Then I said, so the geofences are the only ones we get. Yeah, he said. So I said, what if when the app opens up, we put a 5 mile geofence? He said, yeah, that works. But sometimes the geofence may not come. I said, what if we put 5 mile, 10 mile, 15 mile, 3 geofences? We're going to hit the trucks going on a highway 5, 10, 15 minutes. We're going to get a point within 15 minutes. He said, yeah, that works. That was our solution. I'm going to take a leap of faith here, but the company was sold twice. So I hope they didn't change anything. But it was a solution for the past over 10 years. And it worked like a charm.
Nice.
So it didn't take a rocket, it's not a huge thing, right? These are small things, but when I tell the story, you get amazing kick out of that because it's
Well, it's always great to have those stories, those moments where you were able to figure something out and kind of, I don't know, it sounds tacky to say it this way, but kind of rise above, right? And deliver.
it is, there are a lot of stories like that, right? I mean, with Cure, I'm intentionally not sharing because there is competition out there that might want to know those stories, and I don't want to give them that.
Well, after the episode, we'll connect people with you so they can hear the cute stories as well. I'm curious though, before we wrap up, for someone who's just starting out, that entrepreneur who's getting started, or maybe even that leader of a medium-sized company that's trying to grow and maintain their innovation, what's your advice for them? What do they need to know?
I think three things I'll tell them, right? The first two are easy for me to say as words. The first one is commit. Commit to change. There is no two ways about it. If you want to change something, you have to commit to it. You can't just say, I want to do it, but never commit to it. It's never going to work. The second one is focus. So you got to focus on the problems you want to solve. If you want to get better health, you have to focus on it and work out, eat right, and do things right. The focus is extremely important when you want to innovate. want to change things. The third one has a lot of potential in my mind. The reason I say this is when you're trying to innovate, you're solving problems. I'll go back to my first part of that. When you're trying to solve a problem, don't have a solution in mind, but have a problem in mind. What I mean by that is oftentimes people say in present world, everybody thinks AI can solve every problem. They're running with a horseshoe trying to find a horse. You can't run with a solution and try to solve a problem because then you're not open to thinking. Look at the problem. If AI makes sense, apply it. If AI doesn't make sense, don't apply it. But have that luxury. Be open. Don't be afraid to say in a world where everybody is applying AI, you're not applying AI. So what? It doesn't matter. You're solving a problem, a real problem. That's more important than all the technology, all the hype. The second part of that is when you're trying to solve a problem, you don't have to solve all of the problem by yourself. iPod is probably by far the best example in my life. I did a case study on that in my college days many, many moons ago. Apple, contrary to their own culture of building everything in house, they outsourced everything hardware, firmware, so on and so forth to the companies that actually rejected the iPod idea. And they all helped build iPod and made it successful. That is, if that can't stay as a testament to, innovation, I don't know what else. But
Yeah.
that is what is true. When you're innovating a solution, focus on the problem. If your IT team can do it, most of the times they can do it because they're busy doing something else, not because they're not smart. Find a vendor that can do that. You can get 10 vendors line up and get the best out of all these 10, stitch them together, create your own solution. To me, that is more powerful than having to build everything. It has to look like an IT. It has to sell like an IT. Don't make the solution fit the bill. The problem has to fit the bill.
Love it. I love it. Prasad, thank you so much. I think that is just the perfect note to wrap up on. If people are looking to connect with you, work with Qt, or just chat with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Obvious nowadays everybody's on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. That's where they can connect with me. Although I'm not quite active in terms of sometimes getting back to you. But our website, qt.com. It's very simple, QUED, qt.com, or email me at prasad@qt.com.
Okay. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the listeners as well. Make sure you hit that like, leave a rating as we end. Also, if you know anyone who's going to benefit from Prasad's insight, who might benefit from learning a little bit about Qt and Trucker tools, pass this episode along to them, share the wealth, don't let it slip away. And then lastly, go back through the episode, pick the insight that is most relevant to you, apply it, let us know how it goes, because we are a firm believer in continuous improvement at both the personal as well as the organizational level. Todd, thank you again. Everyone else listening, thank you as well. And we'll see you all next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thank you.